Hello there, and you're very welcome. It's another episode of From Dublin to Cleveland. Logan is not with us today as he is voiceless. But that's all right. I don't think he'd be able to weigh into today's subject matter anyway, all that much, which is on the Irish presidential election of 2025, taking place tomorrow, 24th of October. So we had a lot of contenders when all this began. At least a lot of people who threw their names in the ring, perhaps none more famously than Conor McGregor. He dropped that little bombshell when he was in the USA. However, as time went on, he found the process of getting onto the ballot to be much more difficult, and he indeed was not the only one. We had a number of very strong, seemingly, candidates who wanted to put their name in the ring, wanted to weigh in on turning the trajectory that this nation is currently on. We've got a number of parties, Gael, Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin, or as I call them, Sharia Féin, for reasons I'm sure you can imagine. People Before Profit, Labour, the Green Party, and they tend to unite around all things evil. There's a fake opposition between them, but the reality is they know when to close ranks, and they always do so whenever it's around something that God despises. We've got a few parties who would be more leaning in the ways of righteousness, shall we say, and a number of them put forward a candidate named Maria Steen, who I'll come back to toward the end of this video, but through manipulation of the political process, we've been left with two alternatives. One is named Heather Humphreys, or as I call her, Hefty Heather, or for the purpose of this video, Humpty Dumpty Humphreys. And the other option is, I call her the Scarecrow. Her actual name is Catherine Connolly. So in order to get your name on the ballot paper in Ireland, you either need 4 county councils to get behind you, or you need 20 Oireachtas members to support you. Maria Steen, for instance, secured 18 of those votes, with certain individuals who were asked why they hadn't voted for her. Their response was, because we thought she would win. Micheál Martin, our Taoiseach, I call him Lord Voldemort, he told his party members that they were not to extend a vote for anybody outside of Fianna Fáil. However, he did this covertly. He told them, but he did not put it down in writing. Then there's the leader of Fine Gael, Simon Harris, or as I call him, Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas. He told his members more overtly, it's in writing, we have the proof, we have the receipts, that they were not to vote for anybody who was not in Fine Gael. So therefore, genuine independence found it very, very difficult to break through that threshold. Now, there are a number of discussions taking place right now, and no bills are being put forward to change that process going forward within the next couple of years, to have a process in place to make the running for president far more expansive, far more democratic. But that does not particularly help us with the election tomorrow, or at least tomorrow at time of recording. So Fine Gael rallied around Humpty Dumpty Humphreys. For some reason, I honestly and truly do not know why. She is an absolute djinnet. In all my time of following that woman's career, I don't know if I've ever heard her answer a question, 1, directly, or 2, truthfully. Now, Fine Gael would describe itself as a right-wing party or a centrist party. They are as right-wing as the Conservative Party in England is. AKA, they're not. They are communist light. They have never seen a policy enacted in London, or continental Europe, or California, that they did not like. And obviously, I'm talking about ones which are incredibly destructive, ones which somehow always increase taxes and make people's lives more miserable and make streets more dangerous. Ones which protect criminals and vilify your innocent, everyday, law-abiding citizen. Then there's Catherine Connolly, who has been put forward by the far left members of the Irish government, including one named Paul Murphy. Allow me to give you a little bit of insight into this chap, one of her biggest supporters. During a discussion on the universal social charge, Mr. Danny Healy-Rae called for the tax to be abolished and made a lengthy contribution that ranged from sewage to roads and the cost of climate action. Other TDs, which is Chuck Didala, Member of Parliament, intervened, and Labour finance spokesman Jed Nash said there are serious amendments to debate. Mr. Healy-Rae complained he was being heckled, said the tax was unfair, and then hit out at other parties for voting for the carbon tax. Most of you voted for it in the chamber, except our little group. You all voted for the carbon tax. And you said it actually was not enough. So let's make people even more miserable. Let's make their lives even harder. Let's make Ireland even more unlivable. Mr. Murphy, one of Catherine Connolly's biggest supporters, said, "No, we did not. As we point out every single time." This is the good part. Mr. Healy-Rae then replied, "What do you know? Sure, you don't know whether your own baby is a boy or a girl." Mr. Murphy reported, "F off," adding a-hole. You are an effing a-hole. When his wife gave birth last year, and this article was written in 2024, Mr. Murphy said in an interview with the Irish Times that the couple had decided to name their child Juniper, whether it was a boy or a girl, and they were not gendering their baby. And here we can see an article by People Before Profit, Paul Murphy's group, in which they endorsed Deputy Catherine Connolly for president. Paul Murphy urges left parties, socialist, communist, to back Deputy Connolly in an energetic, coordinated campaign, articulating a radical, progressive vision, not two words you ever want to see in the same sentence. God love this woman. She looked like she should be in a nursing home. She's 68. People Before Profit's steering committee has agreed to endorse Deputy Catherine Connolly for president. Subject to ratification by National Council of People Before Profit members, Deputies Paul Murphy and Richard Boyd Barrett will formally nominate Deputy Connolly for the position. Stating that she's popular, I don't really know with whom, I'll be honest. Principled figure on the left, yeah, and I'll show some clips later on. You can make up your own mind on that. And we're pleased that she's put herself forward as a candidate. We welcome the Social Democrats have also given their support to Catherine, and we urge others on the left to join her campaign. However, it's not just Humpty Dumpty who managed to find her name in the ballot paper, as pushed by Fine Gael, who surely knew that she knows absolutely nothing that anyone needs to hear. Nor is it that it's just Catherine Connolly, as pushed by People Before Profit, Sharia Fain, etc. But there's another name on the ballot, and this is a curious one. Because even if you vote for this guy, he cannot win. And this guy is named Jim Gavin. He was put forward by Fianna Fáil, and then a number of weeks ago, let's just say, word got out that he was actually very, very naughty and could not be trusted when it came to finances. So he had to pull out of the presidential race. However, the ballot papers had already been printed, and his name is still on them. This guy could literally get the most votes of any of those three candidates, and he would not win. So why are they leaving his name on the ballot paper? One if some people give a first vote to one of the contenders and a vote two to him, they're probably hoping that by the transfers, their own champion will emerge victorious. And two, the number of citizens eligible to vote is irrelevant. If 1/4 of the number of people who turn up at the ballot box to vote for him, his party, Fianna Fáil, they can get €250,000 back of taxpayer money. And that is simply if 1/4 of the people who turn up on voting day cast their vote for him. So Fianna Fáil, under Lord Voldemort, are undoubtedly thinking, perhaps there's money to be made here, and we can make back some of the money that we squandered on this pathetic loser. So now I'm going to show you a reel, and this is just to give you a sense of what these candidates are like. We're going to start off with Humpty Dumpty Humphreys, then afterwards, Scarecrow Connolly, and then after that, I'm going to tell you what the Lord's report is, who the Lord wants the victor to be, who the Lord wants in Áras an Uachtaráin, which is the President's House in Phoenix Park in Dublin, in Ireland. You have been duly warned. Have a sick bucket at the ready. Play the clip.
Demographics and an aging population are a major part of that problem, and the long-term solution to that is to increase birth rates, which many other European countries are attempting to do, like France and Hungary. So my question is, what steps are your government taking to make it easier for Irish citizens to have bigger families, if any? So, Minister, in light of the shocking scenes in Dublin this week of Garda cars being rammed on Cherry Orchard and videos of women having their faces slashed on Dame Street, is it not true that your government is presiding over complete lawlessness?
No, I don't accept that.
A person of interest in last week's Parnell Square stabbing was the subject of at least one deportation order since coming to Ireland, and the Sunday Independent reported that he had been in the country for 23 years and has never worked while in the state. So, to echo a question posed by Aisling Murphy's boyfriend in his victim impact statement, how does someone come to live here for over 20 years and never be expected to work? Could you answer that as the Social Protection Minister?
That he was an Irish citizen, 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 that he was an Irish citizen.
Minister, this week Senator Michael McDowell asked whether the 1951 UN asylum rules are actually equipped to deal with mass numbers of economic migrants, the way we've been seeing across Europe, as you say. And he described the Geneva Convention's refugee policy as, quote, outdated and unsustainable. So I'm just wondering, since the government often refers to Ireland having its hands tied by so-called international obligations, would you agree with McDowell that it might be worth considering whether some of those obligations, like the 1951 rules, might not be fit for purpose anymore in a modern context when geopolitics is so different to when it was first drafted?
Ireland is a very proud and active member of the EU. We engage with our counterparts right across the European Union in terms of looking at the rules-based system that we currently have, and I think it's important that we do that as a collective.
Barely touched on in that interview or throughout the campaign has been the one thing that a president really can affect, which is the conversation around United Ireland. And I've been very concerned about the acceleration of a border poll, about the conversation around that.
Heather Humphreys would have been a perfect candidate for building United Ireland 15 years ago. What people in the north are concerned about today is the cost of living, a healthcare system, and it'll be those factors that truly influence any result of a border poll. And I think Heather Humphreys' record on failing to get on top of the housing crisis, a failing healthcare system that is leaving people and children on waiting lists, is not going to appeal to anyone north of the border.
I don't regret any of my actions. I don't have any remorse. I enjoy the impact that my actions have caused. I enjoy hurting people.
Convicted of sexual assault as well?
Yeah.
In the past?
Yeah.
Do you regret that?
No.
The violent biologically male sex offender Barbie Kardashian was released from prison this week, and when you were Social Protection Minister, that's when Barbie Kardashian actually received the gender recognition cert, recognising that this person is considered legally female, which is why they were in a women's prison in Limerick among female inmates, threatening female guards and so on. Do you feel responsible for that person being placed into a women's prison? And also, do you believe that Barbie Kardashian is a woman, given that your department granted that certification?
I would actually classify them as a trans woman. People need assistance and they need support.
My life has been turned upside down because my religious beliefs are being taken away from me. And I am a victim because of your gender ideology. And the people round about you here, Paul Murphy and your supporters, that's your gender ideology.
You're assaulting me.
Listen to the president speaking.
You're assaulting me.
You little pussy boy.
This is assault. This is assault.
What's assault?
You're assaulting me.
How are you assaulted?
You're assaulting me.
Who's assaulting you? What's assault?
I'm being assaulted.
Tell me about assault. What's assault?
I'm being assaulted.
This is not assault, man.
You're assaulted. This is assault. This is assault. This is assault. This is assault.
Why did you do it to her?
This is assault.
Why did you do
This
it
is
to her?
assault.
Why did you do it to her?
This is assault.
She's running for president of this country.
And I know there are many people at home tonight that are wondering why, there are only two people on this ticket. And indeed, we're wondering that ourselves, why there hasn't been more. And that's something that has been, part of this process.
I'm absolutely pro-European, where I came from, but it was imbued into us, actually, equality and social justice from a very early age, and that's been part of my DNA all my life.
It does raise an interesting question, though, in relation to gender, and it is something we got in a lot from listeners when we were previewing that you were coming on today. A lot of people concerned about your gender ideology. So could I ask where you stand on that?
I think there's no doubt where I stand on it. We need an inclusive society. And I know the actual pain and suffering that somebody goes through when they feel that they're not having the right gender. I know that that's a painful, painful process. But I will say, prior to my time, and it was a good act, the government passed the Gender Recognition Act. And it's law that somebody can choose to change their gender and register accordingly over 18 years of age.
How many genders do you think there are, in your view?
I think it's up to people to decide that. We're here because this government and previous governments have been excoriated in the courts. As far back as 92, when the Supreme Court McCarthy, which I'll quote from in due course, excoriated the government at its failure to bring in appropriate legislation, almost 10 years after the 1983 amendment. And we've been excoriated in the European Court of Human Rights. And we've been excoriated by 2 UN committees on human rights. So we're here because we have brought shame on ourselves and because the 8th Amendment has caused appalling suffering to women and loss of life.
What we can glean from the reel, from interviews that they've had, from the people who are supporting them, both of these women are absolutely hungry for the blood of the unborn. In fact, spiritually speaking, they bathe in it. They are absolutely 100% committed and devoted to the depopulation of the Irish people. Also, euthanasia, pulling the plug on old folk. And you can see Catherine Connolly here. I don't think she realizes that she is one of those old people who, someone might just yank a plug on any day now. But Humpty Dumpty's party and Catherine Connolly, by her own admission, are pro-killing old people. They do not want Ireland to have a future. They do not want Ireland to have those who can pass on a legacy and traditions. They do not want it tomorrow. They do not want it yesterday. All they want is an elongated present that they can control. It's a lot like George Orwell said in 1984. He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. They do not want you to know what was, and they do not want you to know what can be. The word of God is very clear that there is nothing new under the sun, that God calls the past to account, that history repeats on a cycle so you can see what was, so you can be evil in your time and secure the future. But these women are devoted to policies that eliminate the future of the nation. And let's be honest, ever since abortion was introduced into this country, it's been going to hell in a handbasket. They want more murders, although they don't want to call it murder. It's just going to be, well, it's the law. It's the way things are. Well, I mean, it is what it is. We have legislation and we're bound to follow legislation. And in addition to that, they're also committed to illegal immigration. Basically, they want an Ireland for all, which includes child rapists that they import. They want mayhem on the streets. They want chaos. And they do not care how many people get slaughtered so they can bring in their regime. Allegedly, of course. With eyes wide open, they have seen the ruination of continental Europe. The USA, Britain, the Western Hemisphere, the Western world, that, let's be honest, created civilization as we know it. I mean, the West is the best, it's why everyone wants to be here. But they've seen how left-wing politics, socialism, communism, liberalism, libtardism, progressivism, regressivism, whatever you want to call it, they've seen how it has been the absolute destruction and humiliation of the Western world, and they are committed to see it intensify in our time. So where does that leave us? Well, the Lord gave me a dream on Saturday, just gone, in which he told me that his aim is for Maria Steen to be the president of the country. To those of you in Ireland, you probably know exactly who that is. To those of you abroad, that name probably means very, very little. So I thought, Lord, how am I supposed to justify this to, well, anyone? So he led me to the word, to Judges chapters 4 and 5. Judges chapter 4 verse 1 says, "Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, now that Ehud, the righteous judge, was dead." Well, yeah, that hit me like a ton of bricks, because that describes Ireland right now. In 2015, for some bizarre reason that I don't know if I'll ever really understand, people thought it was a good idea to vote to constitutionally redefine marriage. In 2018, because 2015 was really and truly just the gateway, once they pulled that off, they knew that they could have free reign in the nation. Then they voted to introduce abortion. And what happens when you are shedding innocent blood in your nation? Your nation is under a curse. And let's just see the overflow of all that. 2024 to 2025 has seen sexual offences rise 15%. In the same space of time, threats to murder, harass, and assault are up 3%. Weapons and explosives related crimes are up 14% between 2022 and 2025. Between 2015 and 2025, illegal drug use is up 50%. Human trafficking has increased by 30% between 2022 and 2024. And listen, both of these women and most of the parties that I've mentioned today are pro-open borders. They know that criminals are coming in under false identities. They know that children are going missing from state care. They know that those children, well, let's just keep this PG, shall we say, have not been found since. And they're all working together. They're either pedophiles themselves, or they're doing everything they can to protect sexual predators. I would say it's a bit of both. Theft has increased by 46% between 2022 and 2025. And since, well, last year, fraud is up 73%. Again, Judges 4:1 absolutely describes the state this nation is in right now because of these absolute infidels. Judges 4:2. So the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin. What does Jabin mean? Well, when the Lord is correcting your nation, eventually, his plan would be for it to be sooner, but it often takes longer. People cop themselves on. They're like the prodigal son. They reach a point where they're like, ugh, why am I admiring pigs slop? This makes no sense. Ugh, I need to go back to my father's house. That's what Jabin is. It's he who perceives, he who sees, he who understands, he who discerns, he who becomes more intelligent. Jabin was the king of Canaan. And Canaan has several meanings in Hebrew. It means to give up individual leanings in order to unite more effectively as a group. It does not matter what hell the buzzards in Leinster House put this country through. They always say, oh, well, we're just following European Union protocols. It is what it is. Our hands are tied. We're not a sovereign nation. We're just a colony of the new wannabe Roman Empire. Sorry, you vote for this in the 1970s. What you gonna do? Well, nothing. You can't. Canaan means purple. I do not know what queer people is, but purple is the color of their flag. And our last Taoiseach and children's minister were both gay, so, take them that what you will. Canaan means trafficking. Like I just said a few moments ago, where are all those children disappearing to? Hello. It means to humiliate, and they are absolutely making an embarrassment of the nation a holy show every time they open their mouths. It means to make low, or to make a servant. And most people in this nation are living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck. For such a small country, we should not have the problems that we do. Yet they've made this country unlivable, to the point where a very large sum of people in their 20s and 30s have their eye on other nations and want to get the heck out of Dodge because they cannot see how they could possibly build a future here. And the Strong's Dictionary lists Canaan as a nation of cults, infamous for child sacrifice, ritual prostitution, necromancy, and divination. And considering there is a Freemason lodge literally across the road from Leinster House, where the Dáil meet, well, put 2 and 2 together. It does not equal 5. Judges 4:2 goes on to say that the king of Canaan dwelled in Hazer, which means trumpet. Now, in Ireland, we have probably found the largest number of bronze trumpets of any country on earth. And when they were blown, in the past, it was to signal that it was time to worship the sun god and the earth goddess. And our government are absolute idiots for the Green New Deal. It is their religion. It is the mountain that they're willing to die on. They would literally sacrifice this nation, whose contribution to global warming is so infinitesimal that if my nation stopped existing, no one would know, the weather would not change. Jabin's commander was named Sisera, and Sisera means a swift darting horse. Keep the horse in your mind, it comes back later. And he was based in Harashet Hagoyim. If I mispronounce that, doesn't matter. Just say it with confidence, and it sounds right. That location means silence of the Gentiles. That city means silence of the Gentiles. And the Irish government and the European Union are absolutely hell-bent on bringing in hate speech laws into this country. What's a hate speech law? It means criticize the government, and we will seize your personal property, and we will put you in prison. The European Union tried very, very hard to make Ireland pass hate speech laws only days ago. But I think the absolute hatred in the country right now toward the government was so overwhelming that they knew that this would be the straw that would break the camel's back. So they decided to waylay it, postpone it, run away from it, reject it. In fact, many are saying they were defeated by a single tweet. But I do think at some point they will try to bring it out of their back pockets again. It means the scratching, the carving, the engraving, the ploughing, the cutting of the nations. It means speech yet silent, hearing yet deaf, secrecy and information technology. So literally, it's using technology to silence people, to shadow ban, cancel culture. Oh, if you speak against our jabs policy and our masks policies, you are a far-right fascist Nazi, and we need to actively come against you and put pressure on social media organizations to shut you down. This kind of thing. Judges 4, verse 3 says, because he had 900 chariots fitted with iron and had crucially oppressed the Israelites. What does it mean to oppress in the Hebrew? It means to afflict, to crush, to force, to hold fast, to thrust oneself, to squeeze, to urge, to torture, exert oneself, to shut a door and press someone back outside with the door, human tyranny. That is the Irish government all over right now. They cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. And I would say since the end of the Celtic Tiger and the beginning of the Great Recession of 2008, that is very much how this nation has felt, which means that we are potentially in for another 3 very difficult years unless things change. But that's okay. Even though the enemy comes to steal timelines, kill timelines, and destroy timelines, I do believe that God can give them back prematurely. And how does he do that? Now, Deborah, a prophet. What does Deborah mean? Deborah means to formalize, to deliberately establish and pronounce something's name or definition. The principle sitting at the base of a normal reasoning and human awareness. Naming of a thing that causes the experienced reality of the thing and forms the whole of experienceable reality. Oh my goodness, why can we not all just speak Hebrew? Imagine one word having all those connotations. So God is saying he has a woman. He's got a woman in Ireland. And she's amazing. And she looks at a spade. And she calls it a spade. She says it quacks like a duck. It walks like a duck. It waddles like a duck. It is in fact a duck. And it says here she's the wife of Lipidoth. So one, she's married, she's the wife. And that translates in Hebrew as a woman like a torch, the woman of fire. A woman of such zeal for God, such conviction for truth, that this woman could burn the house of cards to the ground. AKA, my kind of woman. Let's jump on to Judges 5:6. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael. Look at this. The highways were abandoned. When were the highways abandoned? In the 2020s. All right, yeah, in 2020 and 2021. It was called the lockdown. It was called the shutdown. It was called the COVID crisis. The roads are empty. You were told by your governments that you could not leave your house. Fresh air would kill you. Those of us who knew anything about viruses, I knew incredibly little, but I knew that fresh air was a good thing for the human body. And then, a year and a half later, they said, okay, you can go outside. It's actually good for you. Sunlight kills viruses, which, you were shadow banned and deplatformed if you'd said 18 months earlier. But they wanted you sitting at home, eating takeaways and watching Disney Plus. and turning your head to mush by watching RTE. So the fact that Judges 5-6 specifically refers to a lockdown scenario, days in which people were not leaving their homes, were not to be found in the streets, were cowering in fear in their houses like scared little girls during a thunderstorm. That is how we know that God's talking about this election. Judges 5:7. Villagers in Israel would not fight. They held back until I, Deborah, arose. Until I arose, a mother in Israel. Some translations say warriors in Israel would not fight, but actually I think it works both ways. You can be a warrior, you can be a troop in the Lord's army, but you're cowering at home, you do nothing. So what are you? Well, you're practically a civilian. And here we've got villagers, which includes men, who should be standing up for righteousness, but now they're far too busy hiding away from the purple people, from the Canaanites. So if the men will not take a stand for righteousness, okay, we have Jim Gavin, but again, he's got his own financial and legal issues taking place right now. That is when God raises up a woman. That is when God raises up a mother. And when God elevates one of his daughters, you will notice a steady progression of more of his daughters rising up. And he rose up Gael. I believe her name is a pun, which is to say a lot of our politicians are corrupt. And Maria Steen, and God's Irish Deborah being in power would lead to many arrests. But Gael also means prophet. Not prophet as in, so saith the Lord, but prophet as in money. If we put all these together, Sisera, a swift darting horse. Deborah, one who'd use words and names correctly. That she was the judge of Israel in her day. She was leading and judging. She's a barrister. She's a mother, literally and figuratively in the Hebrew. And Gael, a prophet. Then the Lord's choice for the Irish president of 2025 was and is, I believe, Maria Steen. Maria Steen is a barrister who fought against marriage redefinition, the slaughter of preborn humans. The government's attempt last year to remove all references from women and mothers from our constitution and to replace it with obscure language that would basically legitimize every single illegal immigrant that they have invited to be an economic migrant, to pillage the nation, to rape our women, to steal our property, to cause fights, to harm a child like they did yesterday in City West. It was gruesome, it was sad, it was tragic. You can Google that for yourself if you like. And would open the door for every single one of them to bring all their friends, family, neighbors, and even once upon a time, and I mean that literally, correspondence here and be given taxpayer money and live off the backs of workers. This woman fights against the trans agenda of calling little boys girls, little girls boys, encouraging teenagers to take puberty blockers, encouraging men to get their bits chopped off, and women to get lumps of their arm torn off and rolled up and stapled between their legs. She's 100% against all that. She is happily married. She's got 4 kids. That's where you get the wife from. That's where you get the mother from. But what about the prophet? What about the horse? Well, after Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael rigged the election process against her, she finished with 18 nominations. She needed 20. So, at a press briefing to make a statement about her failed presidential bid, Steen carried a luxury Hermes handbag, which was estimated to cost between 10,000 and 40,000. How do you have a 30,000 euro gap? I don't know. This was met with negative commentary in the press and on social media. From whom? With Steen admitting she did it deliberately to expose the hypocrisy of the left, who don't love the poor, they just hate the rich. That's where profit comes in. She is rich. Why do politicians hate rich people? Because you can't buy them. And the part of the horse, Hermes is a French luxury goods company that was founded in 1837, and in its earliest days, it specialized in making equipment for horse riders and horses. For those of you who have never looked at a Bible story before and saw it replay in your time, this is called a prophetic narrative. It's not like you're reading a Bible story and saying, "Oh my goodness, this is a prophecy." It's not. But you're living in a replay because there is nothing new under the sun. History does repeat itself. God called the past to account in your present. So you can see how the heroes of old beat evil in their time and reproduced it in your time. And it is very important that this seized, stolen timeline be corrected. Because in Ireland, a presidential cycle lasts 7 years. The incumbent nearly always wins, which would be 14 years. And we are hanging on by our fingernails as it is. We can't really cope with 14 more years of this crap. And why is it important that God's choice gets an Áras an Uachtaráin as our president? Because Judges 5:31 says, "So may all your enemies perish, Lord." Why is that so there? Because Gael, a woman, was used by God to hammer a tent peg into Sisera, the evil Canaanite commander's temple. David decapitated Goliath. The Lord said to Satan in the Garden of Eden, "I'm going to crush your head." Jesus died on Golgotha, the Mount of the Skull, to rescue us from the law of sin and death. And Gael cracked the skull of the evil commander. So may all your enemies perish, Lord. Lop off the evil Hydra heads, and the body politic will course correct before you know it. But may all who love you be like the sun when it rises in its strength. Then the land had peace 40 years. That is what is up for grabs. 40 years of peace. 40 years of revival. 40 years of freedom. 40 years of release. 40 years of justice. 40 years of payback. So for everybody watching this today, I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but this is what I'm going to do. I am very big on the hashtag Spoil Your Vote campaign because you do not want it to be written in the Book of Works in heaven beside your name that you put in power one of these reprobate women. I keep calling Catherine Connolly a scarecrow. Why? Because scarecrows get hung on a tree at the end of the day. And what does the Bible say about those hung on a tree? They are cursed. Now you can pray for the woman, and she might turn her life around and serve Jesus, and praise God, hopefully she will. But at present, she is sold out to evil. As for Humpty Dumpty Humphreys, why do I call her that? Because Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, and Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. And that is exactly what I predict for Heather Humphreys and all those connected to her. They hate the things of God. They hate the people of God. Plus, Humpty Dumpty married an orange man. Yeah, a man from the Orange Order. For those of you who think, burning your nation's flag is a new thing, check out those guys. They light massive bonfires and they throw effigies into it to represent Irish Republicans. And she thinks that she's the right woman for the job, moving into a mansion that our taxes pay for. And obviously her Ireland-hating husband would be moving in with her. So, no. So my advice is to go in there and spoil your vote. Right? Jesus is king, and under it, Maria Steen or something. Because especially if you're a Christian watching this, you need to know, friends, you are responsible before God, who you choose to empower. And I just want to take the next couple of minutes to read to you the preamble to the Irish Constitution. In the name of the most holy Trinity, from whom is all authority, and to whom, as our final end, all actions both of men and states must be referred. We, the people of Eire, humbly acknowledging all our obligations to our divine Lord, Jesus Christ, who sustained our fathers through centuries of trial. Gratefully remembering their heroic and unremitting struggle to regain the rightful independence of our nation, and seeking to promote the common good with due observance of prudence, justice, and charity, so that the dignity and freedom of the individual may be assured, true social order attained, the unity of our country restored, and concord established with other nations. Do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution. Now, friends, there are lies going around out there saying that it is illegal to spoil your vote. It isn't. Saying, oh, if you spoil your vote, I mean, someone's going to win, so you've just wasted your time. You haven't. If you do not go to that voting booth, you cannot complain what happens next. If you go and spoil your vote, every spoiled vote is counted. And you can make it crystal clear that you are fed up to the back teeth of the days in which our beautiful, beloved, stunning, amazing, manifest destiny towards an explosive revival and outpouring of holiness and righteousness nation is fed up of being a nation of murder, drug crime, and violence, in which social cohesion is a thing of the past, and chaos, a nightmare from which we never awaken. So vote prayerfully and carefully. And even though at present it looks like the prophetic narrative has been stolen and our Deborah has lost her shot, as long as God is on the throne and his people are humble and prayerful and obedient to his voice, timelines can be course corrected and we can have those 40 years of peace. Amen. Amen. And amen. A very different from Dublin to Cleveland episode, but a very important one. Americans, we give Trump a lot of spotlighting on this platform. We had to throw in some shamrocks and four-leaf clovers for balance. And look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye, friends.